Anyone who has ever been a parasite knows that even the slightest suspicion from the host means you must leave immediately until a new tenant arrives. That beautiful, vibrant, and irresistibly alluring host made me break the parasite's code. After losing my job, I became a parasite, hiding under the bed in a rented apartment, surviving by secretly eating the new tenant's food. The hard floor beneath the bed, in room 302, Unit 2, Building 7 of Jingfu Community is a dark, narrow, dust-filled kingdom known only to me, where cockroaches and pillbugs are my subjects. I once saw 3 different hosts. The first was a programmer who worked overtime to the point of madness. His instant noodle soup gave me the energy to survive. Unfortunately, he didn't stay long before moving out. Judging by his hysterical phone calls, it seemed he lost his job. I wonder if he, like me, also became another king. The second host were a quarrelsome young couple who applauded for love every night, but they never cooked in the rental, and even the occasional takeout was always eaten clean, leaving me so hungry that I even considered leaving. Until one day, I saw 2 pairs of legs intertwined, and then the bed began to sway and creak above me. From the sounds alone, I could easily tell that this girl wasn't the one I was familiar with. Not long after, just like in a melodramatic TV show, the girl brought her friends and caught them in the act. After a heated argument, a fight broke out, and they ended up moving out of the rental as well. After that, I lived alone in the empty room 302 for 2 days, with my supplies running dangerously low. Hunger gnawed at my stomach like a rat with sharp teeth, until the crisp sound of high heels echoed through the room. My third host had arrived. I held my breath and pressed my face tightly against the floor. Peering out through the gap, I saw a pair of beautifully shaped ankles in exquisite high heels. Next, a heavy-looking black suitcase was dragged inside, and a faint, pleasant scent of perfume drifted under the bed, dispelling some of the stale air. My view was limited. I could only see below her calves, but even from this, I could tell she was different from the previous hosts. Beautiful, vibrant, and stirring something deep within me. An inexplicable feeling, mixed with the dizziness of hunger, suddenly rushed to my head. However, I quickly calmed myself down. I silently recited the rules of survival in my heart. Never make a sound when the host is at home. I reminded myself that I just wanted to live peacefully and would never do anything to harm others. Yet in the next moment, he stood up and, as if talking to himself, said, "It's so hot. I'll take a shower first." He left the bedroom, his footsteps heading toward the bathroom. Only then did I realize my own heart was pounding like a truck engine. The scent from those exquisite ankles was intoxicating. All these elements combined into a dangerous temptation, and an absurd thought sprang up uncontrollably. She must be really beautiful. Maybe I could get to know her. I was startled by my own thoughts. Just then, the sound of running water abruptly stopped, and soft footsteps echoed again. I saw her standing right in the center of the room. A clear, calm voice, tinged with a hint of laziness and playfulness, sounded out. She gently spoke to the empty room.
"Don't peek, okay?"
It felt as if all the blood in my body had frozen. Fear gripped my heart like a cold iron fist. She found me. She must have found me. Even the slightest chance of being discovered meant I had to leave immediately. The rules of survival rang out in my mind like a struck bronze bell, its warning echoing over and over. I had to run. I had to escape before he called someone over, before I was dragged off to the police as a lunatic. My limbs trembled uncontrollably, ready to dart out from under the bed and dash for the door at the fastest speed possible. I couldn't let him see my face. Absolutely not. But a few seconds passed, and there was no scream as I had expected. No harsh questioning. No call to the police. The host did nothing at all, as if he hadn't said anything just now. After the extreme panic subsided, reason returned. I forced myself to calm down. Maybe he wasn't talking to me. It's said that many landlords have disgusting fetishes. For example, installing hidden cameras in the room or something like that. She's so beautiful, and she lives alone. She must be on guard. Maybe she was bluffing, warning any potential hidden peepers. Yes, that must be it. I kept comforting myself while staring intently at her movements in the bedroom. She moved, walked over to that large suitcase, and seemed to be rummaging through it for something. Maybe a flashlight, pepper spray, or an alarm. After a while, the rummaging sound stopped. With a click, she turned off the bedroom light. I felt the bed sink slightly, and the rustling of the blanket could be heard. Time seemed to pass endlessly, but eventually, everything quieted down, leaving only her steady, long breaths. She had fallen asleep. I lay there on the floor, completely paralyzed like a pile of mush, my back already drenched in cold sweat. A sense of weakness, like having survived a disaster, enveloped me. As expected, she was bluffing, but I still managed to stay hidden. After the relief passed, hunger struck again, even more intensely than before. Like a silent worm, I moved with the slightest motions, crawling out from under the bed extremely slowly. Moonlight streamed through the gap in the curtains, illuminating the room and casting light on the figure lying on the bed. I stood up in front of the bed and finally saw her face clearly, as well as a full bottle of sleeping pills placed on the nightstand. Su Jingyu, that was her name. Her ID card was casually tossed on the bedside table. Judging by the bottle of pills, this must have been what she was searching for just now. I carefully observed her as she slept. She was unbelievably beautiful. Her long black hair spread out on the pillow like a cloud, and her features looked especially gentle and delicate in the moonlight. Before I became a parasite, I used to fantasize about having a girlfriend like her, living together under the sun, building a happy family. But then, a wave of shame and self-loathing would always follow. I am just a worm living under the bed. How could I be worthy of peeking at her, let alone fantasizing about her? I didn't even dare to look at her for another second. All I could do was survive. With that thought, I carefully rushed to the kitchen. There was bottled milk and some snacks in the fridge. They must have been brought by her. According to the rules, I took a little bit from each of the already opened foods, just enough to reduce the quantity slightly. In my experience, ordinary people would never notice. After easing the pain in my stomach, I tiptoed back to the bedside. Su Jingyu was still deep in sleep. Sweet dreams to you. I silently wished my host well, then crawled back into the dark kingdom beneath the bed, curling up in my familiar spot, listening to my own still rapid heartbeat. I felt a slight sense of security. The steady sound of breathing from the bed above lulled me, and my consciousness began to blur. Just as I drifted between sleep and wakefulness, a faint rustling sound reached my ears. Was she turning over? I wondered groggily, my mind growing heavier and heavier until a shadow fell over me like a black waterfall. Without any warning, something dangled down from the edge of the bed. My eyes flew open in an instant. It was hair, thick and black as seaweed, cascading downward, and between those strands, a pair of upside-down eyes stared unblinkingly through the gaps, gazing straight under the bed. Were you just spying on me? No. I tried to defend myself, wanting to escape from under the bed, but it was too late. The hair began to spread uncontrollably, wrapping around me and binding me beneath the bed. Then, like living venomous snakes, the strands slithered into my throat, ears, and nostrils. I struggled in vain, only able to make choking sounds from my throat, until the hair churned relentlessly inside my organs, finally tearing me apart completely. I jolted awake with a start. My heart pounded wildly against my chest, as if it was about to leap out the next second. Still shaken, I looked up at the gap. Nothing unusual had happened. Su Jingyu's breathing was steady, the room's layout unchanged, and the large suitcase still sat silently in the corner. Everything was as it should be. I buried my head in my arms, gradually calming myself down. That dream had felt so real, especially those cold, hollow eyes. After a while, the morning light began to shine through the window. It was already dawn. Maybe my movements were too loud, because before long, the person on the bed woke up as well. I heard Su Jingyu stretch and, smiling at the air, say,
"Good morning. Who is he talking to?"
He swung his legs off the bed, turned to the side, and got up to wash up. I didn't make a sound, my eyes following his every move. Fear gave rise to a morbid curiosity. Last night's dream was so shocking that I had to see with my own eyes that my host was perfectly normal before I could dispel that terrifying vision from my mind. Yet, everything that followed was so ordinary and natural. I heard him talking to someone on the phone. It sounded like he had just moved to this city not long ago and was applying for a job. "This afternoon at 2, I'm available." After putting down the phone, Su Jingyu's voice was filled with joy. She started humming a little tune and began watching a TV drama, just like any ordinary girl. Around noon, he went to the kitchen to cook. The aroma of the food was so strong that I could smell it even in the bedroom, making my mouth water. At 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the sound of high heels gradually faded away. The door of the rental apartment closed, and the room fell silent once again. I patiently waited another 5 minutes before slipping out from under the bed like a ghost, then hurried eagerly to the kitchen. As soon as I entered, a sumptuous meal came into view. Every dish was vibrant in color, fragrant, and appetizing, making my hunger surge. Su Jingyu had a small appetite, leaving quite a bit of each dish unfinished. I wondered why he would cook so much when he clearly couldn't finish it. Maybe, as a parasite, I just don't understand a normal person's passion for life. Still, I had my own code of conduct, and only ate a tiny bit of food, making sure not to leave any trace that could give me away. Back under the bed, after a night of fright and self-reflection, I decided to adhere even more strictly to my code of parasitism. This wasn't just for safety, it felt more like a form of atonement. I believed that yesterday's nightmare was a direct result of my indulgence. In the days that followed, Su Jingyu's life returned to normal. He found a new job and settled into a regular 9-to-5 routine. This made me feel happy, because it meant I could stay with him for the long term. During the day, I would wake up before he got up and hide back under the bed before he returned home. At night, I would fall asleep to the sound of his breathing. Sometimes, under the cover of night, I would gaze at his face in a daze. I reduced my own life activities to the bare minimum, striving to become an invisible shadow. Strangely, I even started to feel as if I were living together with a girlfriend. Every morning at 7:30, he would lazily hum, then get up to face the empty room and say in a clear and cheerful voice, "Good morning." Soon, I realized this was just a habit of his, like a form of self-motivation. Then he would put on makeup, change clothes, and head out to work. Sometimes before leaving, he would say, "I'm heading out now." In the evening, he would come back around 6:30. The first thing he would say upon entering was often, "I'm home." I calculated the times he left and returned with precision. I made sure not to be discovered. Su Jingyu seemed to thoroughly enjoy living alone, even to the point of being full of energy. He would buy lots of groceries, stuffing the fridge with fruits, vegetables, yogurt, and fresh meat. Far more than a woman living alone could possibly eat. When he couldn't finish it all, he would just throw the leftovers away. Like a pitiful lunatic, I began to greedily soak up these false signals of warmth. Even though I knew that his good morning wasn't meant for me, every time I heard it while curled up under the bed, my heart would still skip a beat. At night, when he said, "I'm home," it somehow gave me the illusion that someone was waiting for me, as if I really wasn't a parasite, but a man waiting for his live-in girlfriend to come home. I knew this thought was crazy. He was my host, and I was the parasite. The only things between us were exploitation and concealment. Yet this twisted daily life was slowly boiling me alive, like a frog in warm water. The world under the bed, ruled by my rationality, became both a hell and a distorted paradise because of the woman on the bed. I desperately wished that this cozy life could go on forever, until one perfectly ordinary Wednesday night, the fragile balance was broken. She didn't come home on time. 6:30, 7 o'clock, 7:10, 7:30, the silence outside the door was absolute. In those first 10 or so minutes, I just thought it was a bit unusual. Maybe she was working overtime. I waited patiently, listening for any possible footsteps. By 8 o'clock, a cold anxiety began to grow in my stomach, quickly spreading to my limbs. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. She had never come home this late before. Had something happened to her? An accident? A run-in with someone dangerous? Countless terrifying scenarios flooded uncontrollably into my mind. This city isn't always safe, especially for a beautiful woman living alone like her. I had to do something. Go out, step through that door and look for her outside. The moment this thought appeared, it carried a kind of self-destructive madness. Just imagining the possibility made me physically uncomfortable. How long had it been since I walked among people? How long had it been since I talked to anyone? Had it been months? Or... Human society has become a kind of horror from another dimension for me. I just can't do it. But what if she really needs help? What if, at this very moment, she's lying in some cold alleyway? Yet another, darker, sharper fear immediately pierced through my anxiety. What if she's not alone right now? Maybe she wasn't working overtime at all, but out on a date. She could be laughing sweetly, holding another man's arm, having dinner, watching a movie, and eventually walking through this door. They would come in together, entering this private space that used to belong only to her and me, and then they would sleep together on the bed right above my head. No, this thought flooded my entire body like a virus. A violent, all-consuming urge to destroy everything suddenly gripped me. If they dared to come, if they dared to defile this place. At that thought, I went to the kitchen and pulled out a sharp fruit knife, determined not to leave a single trace of my existence. Code. Perish together. Fine, my life has been rotten for a long time anyway. I stood in the shadow, where no light reached, holding the knife, waiting to deliver a fatal blow to the betrayer. Time passed in the extreme anxiety and wild fantasies. Every second felt as long as a century. By 9 o'clock, I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't wait any longer. For the first time in months, I put my hand on the doorknob of my rented apartment. The cold metallic touch made me shiver. I took a deep breath as if I were heading to my death. I opened the door. Like a baby taking its first steps, I stumbled, nearly tumbling and crawling down the stairs, rushing out into the night of the residential complex. The night wind was too cold, the streetlights too glaring, the distant noise of cars too loud. Everything made me feel completely out of place. Looking at the street, both familiar and strange, I was overwhelmed with regret. My impulsive decision just now nearly crushed me under the weight of helplessness. Just as I was about to retreat back to my own kingdom, I saw him, Su Jingyu, sitting alone on a bench in the garden of the complex. Under the streetlight, his figure looked a bit frail. His head was lowered, black hair falling down and covering the side of his face, and there seemed to be a shopping bag at his feet. I abruptly stopped in my tracks and quickly hid behind a large tree, breathing heavily. Thankfully, he was safe, and he was alone. But then I noticed something was off about Su Jingyu. He was sitting unsteadily, and when he tried to stand up, he staggered and sat back down. He had been drinking. In that moment, my urge to protect him overwhelmed everything else, and I acted almost without hesitation. Stepping out from behind the tree, I had to act like a neighbor who just happened to be passing by. I straightened my perpetually hunched back and said, "Jingyu, are you okay?" The moment the words left my mouth, I wanted to slap myself hard, twice. I was supposed to be playing the role of a stranger. How could I possibly know his name? Luckily, he really was drunk. Su Jingyu slowly lifted his head, his cheeks flushed, his eyes hazy and clearly intoxicated. He squinted at me for several seconds as if trying to focus and then said, I'm fine." He started to laugh. His smile was even more charming and disarming than usual, though a bit dazed. "My home is just up ahead," he said, pointing toward our Danwon building. "Let me help you back," I offered, trying to keep my tone calm and friendly, though my heart was pounding like a drum. I stepped forward, carefully avoiding his body, and simply reached out to support his elbow. He didn't refuse, and with my help, he staggered to his feet. "Thank you," he said. "You're really kind." The warmth of his body, mixed with the scent of alcohol and a faint trace of cologne, drifted over to me, making me feel dizzy and lightheaded. Even though we'd known each other for a long time, this was our first real conversation. I greedily savored this unprecedented closeness with Xia Shi, yet I was also terrified of being seen by someone else. Every nerve in my body was stretched to the limit as I finally got him to his door. He fumbled with his keys for a long time, unable to fit them into the lock. "Let me do it," I said, taking the keys from him. Inevitably, my fingers brushed against his, and the electric jolt of that touch almost made me drop the keys. I quickly unlocked the door. "Thank you, kind soul," he said, leaning softly against the doorframe and giving me a sweet smile. I stood at the doorway, wondering if he would say anything more, like, maybe he would invite me in to sit for a while. No, how could I even think that? Right now I'm just a kind stranger, a good neighbor, and he's so kind and innocent. How could he just casually invite a stranger into his home? But then, what he said next.
I froze. "Thanks, but my boyfriend's inside, so no tea." The door shut.
He gently closed the door. Boyfriend! It was like I was struck by lightning, completely petrified in the cold hallway. Those two words exploded in my mind, echoing over and over, making my eardrums buzz. Was it me? Did he know? He had known all along. All those good mornings, all those "I'm back." All that unusually abundant food was meant for me. He called me his boyfriend, so was that sentence just now meant for the one under the bed, me, or for the one at the door? Was he, in an extremely subtle way, telling me that he knew everything and accepted this relationship? Or did he actually know nothing at all? Was this just a single woman living alone, instinctively protecting herself while drunk, using the excuse of having a boyfriend inside as a perfect way to reject any further advances from a strange man who brought her home late at night? Was she just using the boyfriend in the house as a pretense to ensure her own safety, to keep me from having any inappropriate thoughts? Which one is the truth? I stood there like a lost soul for hours in the dim hallway. Am I a secret parasite, or just a clown he keeps around for his own amusement? After thinking it over, I suddenly smiled in relief. The logic is simple, isn't it? If he tacitly allows my existence, then that's fantastic news. If he doesn't know, then life goes on just as before. There's absolutely no problem. This conclusion was like a powerful anesthetic, instantly soothing all my anxiety and fear. I even felt a fleeting, morbid sense of delight as I took out the spare key hidden under the doormat and slipped back into the rental apartment like a ghost. Su Jingyu was already asleep, and the bedroom still carried the lingering scent of alcohol. I put the fruit knife back in its place and returned onto the bed, my heartbeat gradually calming down. Everything looked exactly the same as before. The dust remained, the kingdom remained, but I knew that after tonight's loss of control control and contact, some things had changed forever. The next morning, Sujing Yu woke up in the morning light as usual, greeted the air with a good morning, as if getting drunk last night hadn't affected him at all. He went about his usual routine, making breakfast, putting on makeup, then leaving. When I heard the door of the rental apartment close, my heart surged again. Thinking back to what he said last night about having a boyfriend, there was a faint, warm sweetness to it. As usual, I waited another 5 minutes, made sure it was safe, and then crawled out. The feeling of hunger arrived right on schedule, and I headed straight to the kitchen, ready to enjoy breakfast. However, when I opened the refrigerator, something looked different. Next to the fruits and vegetables was a bottle of milk that had already been opened, but what was strange was that there was a clear half-red lipstick mark on the mouth of the bottle, like a freshly stamped seal. My breath caught sharply, my gaze fixed on that lipstick mark, unable to look away. The fleeting physical contact from last night, his drunken hazy smile, his face in profile under the moonlight, all those images rushed out together with the cold air from the fridge. It completely broke down my psychological defenses. As if possessed, I reached out and picked up that bottle of milk. The bottle was ice cold, but the spot where the lipstick mark was seemed to radiate a burning heat. I was utterly entranced, intoxicated. Reason and the survival rules of that twat were screaming warnings at me, but my body acted before my mind could stop it. This wasn't just sneaking a drink. This was a form of indirect intimacy. It was a passionate and intense kiss that transcended time and space. By the time I snapped out of this intoxicating illusion, I realized the bottle was already empty. I drank the entire bottle of milk, not leaving a single drop. Every time I took food before, I would only take the tiniest portion, and now a wave of terror, like ice water, extinguished my reckless fantasies. What have I done? Not only did I touch his things, I even finished all of it. This completely violated my survival rules. This was the stupidest, most easily discovered mistake. Holding the empty bottle, I felt as if I were holding a bomb about to explode, at a complete loss. Before I even know whether he accepts me, I can't afford to lose him. I need to come up with a remedy. Refilling it with water won't work. The color and taste would be all wrong, and he'd see through it instantly. I have to go out and buy an identical bottle. I had no idea what brand it was, and I didn't have any money on me. I didn't even dare to go out during the day. In my panic, I made the most secretive decision. I gripped the empty milk bottle tightly in my hand and crawled back under the bed. All I could do was pray. Pray that he would forget about the milk, or maybe think he had finished it himself and thrown the bottle away. I spent the whole day curled up under the bed, every second dragging by like a year. I'm back. Oh, at 6:30 in the evening, Sujing Yu's voice sounded right on schedule. I held my breath, every nerve in my body tense, focusing on the sounds coming from the kitchen. I heard him open the refrigerator door. Time seemed to freeze for a second, 2 seconds. There was no exclamation, no pause. I heard him take out other ingredients, then naturally close the refrigerator door. He started humming a song as he cooked. Everything as usual. I finally let out a long breath, overwhelmed by a wild joy as if I had survived a disaster. Amazing. He really didn't notice. I'm a genius. That night, I slept especially well, even had a sweet dream. In my dream, I wasn't a parasite. I had a decent job, a car to get around, and a place of my own. Sujing Yu was my girlfriend, and every day at noon, I would bring the lunch she made, enjoying it under the envious gazes of my colleagues. After coming home in the evening, we would walk hand in hand around the neighborhood, greet the neighbors warmly, and have dinner together at an upscale restaurant. The next day, after Sujing Yu left, I couldn't wait to climb out. Maybe he had left another half-finished bottle of milk in the fridge. Since he hadn't noticed last time, could I enjoy it once more? However, there was no need to even open the fridge. When I walked into the kitchen, I saw a yellow sticky note stuck prominently on the refrigerator door. On it, in a neat yet slightly playful handwriting, was a single line of text. The milk is expired, don't drink it. That yellow sticky note burned into my retina like a red-hot branding iron. He knew, of course he knew everything. All my hiding, all my self-satisfied little triumphs were nothing but a performance. But should I run away? While he's not home, I still have a chance to slip out of this nest like a real bug, disappear into the crowds of the city, and look for the next corner that belongs to me. Yet my feet felt nailed to the spot, because beneath the suffocating fear, another strange emotion was stirring. Why was the tone so gentle? Could it be that what he said that night about being my boyfriend wasn't just a delusion? Deep down, he had already accepted me, treating me as part of his family. It was only because of my shyness and introversion that he didn't expose me directly, but instead chose a gentler way to encourage me to reach out to him. This thought, like a devil's whisper, instantly swept away all my reason and any urge to run. Compared to the recognition I'd received, the risk of fleeing and the humiliation of continued hiding had become unbearable, as if I were being controlled by some invisible force. Trembling, I reached out and carefully peeled off the sticky note, then fumbled in the nearby drawer for a pen he usually used. With all my strength, I scrawled 2 crooked words on the back of the note. Thank you. After writing it, a strange sense of excitement swept through my whole body. I quickly stuck the note back onto the most conspicuous spot on the fridge, barely daring to glance at it, and darted back under the bed like a startled rabbit, burying myself deep in the shadows, waiting for the final judgment to come. At last, the click-clack of high heels sounded. He was back. I'm home. His voice sounded as cheerful as ever. I heard him set down his bag, his footsteps approaching the fridge. He stopped. He had seen the note. What would happen next? Time seemed to freeze. It felt as if all the blood in my body had stopped flowing. In the silence, I heard only a faint, almost imperceptible hum, a soft chuckle, carrying a sense of understanding, even indulgence, as if a master had finally seen their shy pet cautiously reach out a paw in response. He accepted it. He really accepted it. I thought, I can come out now. We don't have to play this game of hide and seek anymore. I was trembling with excitement, my eyes even growing a little moist. My long parasitic existence was finally coming to an end. I would be able to live openly in the sunlight. He walked toward the bedroom, his steps light and joyful. I heard his voice. So close, so clear, carrying an indescribable sweetness and intimacy, it echoed in the bedroom.
He said, "Darling, you're finally talking." She said, "Darling," a huge step.
A surge of happiness overwhelmed me, and I could no longer hold back. I wanted to immediately embrace my true feelings, to embrace my girlfriend. As soon as I poked my head out from the edge of the bed and could see the whole bedroom clearly, Su Jingyu neither looked at me nor at the space under the bed. With a strange smile on his face, he walked over to that huge black suitcase I had always ignored. Then he bent down and unlocked the suitcase latches. With a snap, the suitcase sprang open and a pale, twisted body tumbled out like a broken doll, landing heavily. It was the decayed corpse of a man, visible through a mix of rot and perfume. His eyes stared blankly in frozen shock. His legs were missing, leaving only empty space. Su Jingyu seemed not to notice this horror. He gently embraced the corpse, smiling sweetly with a tender, affectionate voice.
Darling, you're finally willing to talk to me. My name is Su Jingyu. A lot of people say I'm crazy. Asking if a man is really worth all this, they don't understand. They have no idea what love is. I love him down to my bones, love him in my very blood. Even though he doesn't have much money, and his job is unstable, and all our family and friends say he's just a parasite living off me, that he's nothing but a freeloader. So what? I don't care. I work hard, I earn money, and I'm willing to give him everything I have. As long as he's by my side, as long as he looks at me and smiles at me, I feel like I have the whole world.
He's so handsome, so gentle. I wish I could hide him away just for myself. But why doesn't he understand?
I gave him everything I had, yet behind my back, he gave the smile that should have belonged only to me, to another woman.
The moment I discovered their ambiguous text messages, my world collapsed. I cried. I made a scene. I questioned him hysterically. I told him that as long as he never did it again, I could pretend it never happened. But he said he couldn't take it anymore and wanted to leave me. How could he leave me?
Without me, what would he eat? What would he wear? Where would he live? He simply couldn't survive. I'm the one who supports him.
Both my body and soul should belong to me.
Since he couldn't control where his legs took him, I decided to help him with that. This way, he could never leave me again. The process was a bit painful for both of us, but it doesn't matter. Temporary pain is for lasting happiness. Now, isn't he behaving just as I wanted? I never have to worry again. He won't run away anymore. I quit my job.
I took him with me to a city where no one knows us. I bought a very large suitcase, big enough to hold him and all my love. The new apartment is very clean, with a spacious bedroom. I put the suitcase next to the bed, so that every morning when I wake up, I can see him right away. And he can see me first thing too. Maybe it's because he's still not used to the new environment, but ever since he lost his legs, he hasn't been very talkative. He just quietly stays in the suitcase all the time. That's okay, I don't mind, because I love him. I know he gets lonely staying home by himself. So every day before going to work, I cheerfully say good morning to the suitcase. When I come home from work, the first thing I do is tell him who's in the suitcase, that I'm back. I'm afraid he might go hungry, so I always buy lots and lots of delicious food to fill up the fridge. I know that every day after I leave, he definitely sneaks out to eat. Even though he moves very quietly, I can tell because there's less food in the fridge and sometimes there are water stains on the table. These are traces of his life. He's keeping me company in his own way. Even though he doesn't talk, I know he loves me deep down. He's just still sulking about what happened before. He needs time. And what I have is patience. My patience is paying off. See, isn't he slowly starting to accept me?
Previously, the local police found in a rental apartment in Xingfu community, they uncovered a shocking case of illegal detention and intentional injury resulting in death. Reportedly, the case began when several residents of the community reported to property management that room 302, unit 2, building 7, had recently been emitting an indescribable odor. Property management staff, accompanied by the police, entered the rental apartment to investigate. They discovered a horrifying scene. In the bedroom, they found a highly decomposed male corpse. According to a preliminary investigation, the victim's legs were missing from the upper thighs, the wounds were crudely treated, and the body had been hidden inside a large suitcase. What was even more baffling was that, despite the body already beginning to decompose, it had been sprayed with a large amount of perfume and wrapped in clothing. The female tenant of the apartment, Sue, age 26, was identified as the person responsible. At the time, she was still living in the apartment as usual, seemingly completely unaware of the strange odor in the room or the corpse inside the suitcase. When the police asked about the man in the suitcase, Sue actually responded with a smile saying, "That's my boyfriend, he's just sleeping," and even tried to prevent the police from approaching the suitcase. Her mental state was clearly abnormal. The female tenant of the apartment, Sue, age 26. At the time, she was still living in the apartment as usual, seemingly completely unaware of the strange odor in the room or the corpse inside the suitcase. When the police asked about the man in the suitcase, Sue actually responded with a smile. "That's my boyfriend, he's just sleeping," she said, and even tried to stop the police from approaching the suitcase. Her mental state was clearly abnormal. The police also discovered another shocking situation at the scene. Under the bed in the bedroom, they found a large number of food packaging bags, empty water bottles, and clear signs that someone had been living there. This indicated that another person had been hiding here for a long period recently. Some of the evidence left at the scene showed that this person in hiding had no direct connection to Sue and was suspected to be an illegal intruder who took advantage of a gap between rental periods to sneak in and hide. Ultimately, thanks to the tireless efforts of the police, the suspect Lee was apprehended.
We urge all citizens to remain vigilant and not to imitate the illegal actions of others. The law is thorough and leaves no loopholes. Police will apprehend any and all offenders.